Hello and welcome to Granada Reports Live with the latest across the northwest.
Hello, many thanks for joining us. Coming up on the programme this evening.
The care home residents forced out because of rising costs. Their loved ones say it could be a disaster for them.
That will affect their health and well-being, and could mean that they deteriorate.
Calls to criminalise water bosses who illegally pollute our waters. Reports millions of litres of raw sewage have been pumped into Windermere.
It's almost time to say goodbye, or auf Wiedersehen, to this man. Jurgen Klopp's Formby neighbours tell us how he bowled them over.
It takes his time to speak to everybody and very, very friendly.
They say never work with children or animals, but celebrity chef Nisha Katona's doing both. Find out why.
And it's felt pleasantly warm over the last few days, but can this taste of spring continue? I'll have all the weather details later on in the programme.
So please stay with us for all of that. First tonight, the families of people living in a nursing home in Failsworth in Greater Manchester say they fear their loved ones' lives will be destroyed when their home is closed down.
In all, 68 residents at Acorn Lodge are being forced to find somewhere else to live because the home's owners say they can't afford to stay open.
They've sold the home to another company who'll repurpose the building. Tim Scott reports.
Time goes by so slowly.
Ruth Tierney singing her heart out. She's just one of 68 elderly residents at Acorn Lodge, a care home in Failsworth. Her family say it's a happy, caring place.
It's a brilliant home. It's a family orientated. Each unit have their own little family.
The staff are brilliant.
The staff are brilliant.
But last week the families here were given the devastating news that their loved ones will have to leave because Acorn Lodge is closing.
It'll kill a lot of them in there because they're really, really upset.
It was terrible. It was absolutely terrible.
Absolutely heartbreaking.
We couldn't believe it. We thought it was a joke. We thought it was a rumour, but no, it's true.
Jackie and Julie's mum Kathleen has dementia and has lived at Acorn Lodge for 5 years.
What will it mean for your mum if she has to move out of here?
We think it'll kill her. We think she'll die.
I think it'll finish her off.
Yeah.
And that's what we're worried about.
Yeah.
She's 85.
She's 85 on Friday.
John Peacock's friend lives at Acorn Lodge. He's angry at how management has acted.
You should have been involved in discussions with the other caring statutory bodies, and then maybe we could have worked out a solution together.
What options are open to you now?
Well, the only thing we can do is find another accommodation. But there are people here who've been here for years, who've got friends and networks within here.
Acorn Lodge's management cite financial reasons for the decision to sell up. A spokesperson said funding for the health and social care system in recent years has not kept pace with the rate of inflation and the other costs of day-to-day living. These will start to have an impact in the future. It was for this reason that we have made the difficult decision to sell the home before any financial struggles started.
Everyone is just, hurting inside, thinking of how you're going to tell them, how you're going to cope with the move, are they going to settle in? It's just unthinkable.
Oldham Council say they share the family's frustrations at the short notice of the announcement of the closure and are working to help rehome the residents. The families have written to their local MPs and Mayor Andy Burnham, but as things stand, Acorn Lodge will still close and this tight-knit community will be scattered and lost for good.
I need your love.
Tim Scott, ITV News, Failsworth.
Well, next night, jurors in the trial of a nursery worker from Stockport who's accused of killing a 9-month-old baby girl by swaddling her and putting her face down on a beanbag have been told to put aside the emotions that the case inevitably stirs.
Kate Ruffley, who was the deputy manager of the former Tiny Toes nursery in Cheadle Hulme, is accused of manslaughter by ill-treatment of Genevieve Meehan. The infant was found unresponsive in May 2022 and later died in hospital.
Our reporter Emma Sweeney has been in court. So Emma, what's the latest on this?
Well, after 4 weeks of hearing evidence in this trial, the jurors have now been presented with the closing speeches of both the prosecution and the defence. Genevieve Meehan's family watched on from the public gallery today as Peter Wright KC first of all reminded jurors of the case from the Crown. He said that in May of 2022, Genevieve Meehan died from a combination of asphyxia and pathopsychological stress after she'd been tightly swaddled and strapped face down on a beanbag by Kate Ruffley. It wasn't, he said, as jurors are being invited to consider an accident, an unavoidable accident. Rather, he said that it was wholly avoidable. He said that the infant had been placed in mortal danger that day by Kate Ruffley, and then she deliberately did nothing about it. Now, later on in his speech, Mr. Wright KC said that it was a recipe for disaster what had happened that day, and disaster there followed. Now, Miss Ruffley is being represented by Miss Sarah Elliott KC. She told jurors that they must put aside emotions that this case inevitably stirs. She said that it was the nursery management who made the decisions about what went on in the baby room, and she said that the beanbag had been designated for use in the baby room because there wasn't enough space for any more cots. Now, she said on the day in question, Miss Ruffley had swaddled the child for extra comfort, but contrary to what the prosecution say, she had placed her down on her side, not on her front, but on her side, because she had a cough, and that Miss Ruffley had placed her down on the beanbag because she was told that she would sleep better on it. Now, today, Miss Elliott KC went on to the jury and said, you may think that she got it wrong, but if she did get it wrong, it wasn't out of malice or cruelty. Miss Elliott KC then went on to say that there were 2 workers in the baby room that day, Kate Ruffley being one of them, and she said that if either of them had noticed that something had gone wrong, then they would have done something about it, because she said they are not monsters, they are ordinary women who have decided to work with children. Now, the judge in this case began the process of summing up here this afternoon. She will continue with that tomorrow morning. Kate Ruffley of Heaton Norris in Stockport denies 1 count of manslaughter and an alternative count of child cruelty.
Emma, thank you.
Police patrols have been stepped up in Greater Manchester after 2 terror suspects appeared in court accused of plotting an Islamic State-inspired gun attack against members of the Jewish community. Chief Constable Stephen Watson, who has now been in post for 3 years, said GMP will be working with community groups to address concerns and that hate crime wouldn't be tolerated.
We have seen an increase in hate-related incidents directed toward our Jewish communities, and our message is, as ever, that there is no place for hate crime anywhere in Greater Manchester.
And the Berry Band Elbow have hailed an amazing gig as Manchester's Co-op Live finally opened to the public last night. Yeah, thanks to Amanda Jane for those pictures. Bosses had previously been forced to delay the opening of Europe's biggest indoor arena 3 times after technical issues. The Black Keys are due to perform tonight after their original gig had to be cancelled last month. Now then, as we edge closer to summer, you might be tempted to swim in open water. Well, not only are there always warnings about staying safe, but you may think twice if you're considering Windermere. It's reported millions of litres of raw sewage have been pumped illegally into the lake.
It's reported a fault at a pumping station meant sewage was pumped into the famous lake for 10 hours back in February.
It's been labelled a scandal by opposition politicians, including the Cumbrian MP Tim Farron. So let's cross live to Westminster to join our political correspondent Elaine Wilcox. Elaine.
Yes, Lucy, there'd already been a long-running campaign to stop the legal dumping of sewage in Windermere. Now it's emerged that up to 10 million litres of raw sewage was illegally dumped in the lake one night in February. Now, United Utilities say they failed to spot the problem because of a fault at a pumping station in Bowness for over 10 hours. Now, Tim Farron, who has Windermere, of course, in his constituency, says that is scandalous, and he puts the blame at the government's door too.
The only monitoring that exists is United Utilities' own monitoring, them marking their own homework. Because it was such an egregious, massive dumping of sewage into the lake, they couldn't hide it and they had to confess it to the Environment Agency, but not until 13 hours after it had happened and millions of litres had been discharged into our lake. So no, absolutely the government bears responsibility for underfunding the watchdog, for giving the powers or having too few powers for those watchdogs and allowing the water companies to do pretty much what they like without redress.
Well, Windermere is popular with swimmers. That's if you don't mind the algae, of course. Now, last month, Steve Coogan, the comedian and actor, he joined the protest there, calling it a toxic time bomb. Now, in a statement, United Utilities say they weren't aware of the leak because of another fault, this time in their telecommunications. They said they did report it to the Environment Agency 13 hours after the leak started. Now, conservationists say that's not good enough.
It took them 10 hours to actually stop it. It took them a further 3 hours on top of that to inform the regulator that a spill had occurred. So I think, fundamentally, they didn't act in a sufficient manner to prevent what is being reported of millions and millions of litres of sewage entering Lake Windermere.
Well, today the Prime Minister has warned water companies to clean up their act, and the regulator is considering whether to ban bonuses for water companies. But Tim Farron says that doesn't go far enough. He is calling for prosecutions, criminal prosecutions for those who break the rules, and says we need firmer action to protect the lakes for future generations.
Elaine in Westminster, thank you. Now, grief is often something we avoid talking about out of fear of upsetting people or saying the wrong thing. But for a group of bereaved people in Bolton, they're not only talking about it, they're turning it into something beautiful.
Yeah, this is a lovely idea. At the Bereavement Cafe, each person sews their own section of a blanket to represent someone they've lost. It's hoped the artwork will go on display across the country. Mel Barham has more.
Sometimes grief has a way of stealing your voice. But finding it again is what this group does best.
I mean, that's the first thing people say to you. You're so strong. That kind of language silences you, because then it makes you think, better not tell them that I'm crying all last night, or I'm not slept.
Helping to unpick that silent world of grief through talking and also a bit of quilting.
We sit around and we have a chat and we normalise how we're feeling, and that is the important thing, because society has taught us that if you keep busy you'll get better, and all those kind of comments, they silence us.
Jane Dixon has made it her mission to help those struggling with grief. Her husband Steve died unexpectedly on a family holiday 6 years ago. He was only 46.
We were trying to desperately grasp help or support, but there was just nothing around other than people saying, oh, you need counselling, you need counselling. I didn't personally feel I needed counselling, just needed to talk to somebody and say, do you feel like this? And there was nothing like that.
So she started her own charity, the Bereavement Cafe, to help others weave their way through that grief. And as part of that, they've begun this sewing group to make a bereavement quilt, each person with their own square, dedicated to a loved one lost.
This is a picture of our Laura 2 weeks before she passed away.
Susan joined the group 12 months ago after losing her daughter.
I just turned up one particular day and it's just been a lifeline for me, because my family, and it's too raw. I can't talk to them to say that I can talk here.
Sadly, I lost my husband just over 12 months ago. That's a piece of Chris's shirt. And I specifically put 3 love hearts and 3 roses on that one because it was like the 3 musketeers, Chris, myself and Oscar.
Sharon and her son, who was just 12 at the time, have both been helped by this charity.
It's enabled me to talk about my feelings, about the grief, because it's something that just stays with you all the time. It's that safe space to, if you need to cry, you can cry. We laugh, we don't all sit around and we're miserable and gloomy, and talk to people that just know what you're going through.
It's been really uplifting being able to share stories, but to do it through embroidery and to know that it's going into be making a memory quilt has been really worthwhile, really.
When all the squares are finished, they hope to display this quilt up and down the country and encourage others to open up.
I do hope that when it is displayed, it will help people have those conversations or make them think about people around them maybe who are grieving, who they have probably thought, she's back at work, she's probably doing okay. I want them to think, actually, she probably isn't doing okay. Shall I check in?
This group has found its voice. Now they want to help others find theirs. Mel Barham, ITV News, Bolton.
Yeah, it's so important to keep those memories alive.
Very,
what a lovely
very
idea, isn't it?
Beautiful.
OK, let's get on to sport now. Manchester City have one hand on that trophy. Can they get the other one on it, Mike?
Well, they'll hope to have both hands on it this time on Sunday. Manchester City will be crowned Premier League champions for an unprecedented fourth straight season if they beat West Ham at the Etihad Stadium.
They know that it's not done. They know it. I didn't see an extra celebration or something like that. That will be difficult. You need to everybody bring the all incredible energy with the families, with all the people they want, go in there and win every inch and every meter for deserve to win that game.
Manchester United manager Erik ten Hag says he doesn't believe the mood is low amongst supporters. United play their penultimate game of a disappointing Premier League campaign tonight at home to Newcastle. They're sitting 8th in the table, 34 points adrift of top spot.
You said the mood is low. Maybe the expectations are lower. But the mood, I don't want to say. I don't feel that the mood, that the vibe they create, it's lower. They make a lot of noise and they're backing the team.
Now, it's hard to believe, but in just 4 days' time, Liverpool fans will bid an emotional farewell to Jurgen Klopp, who steps down as the club's manager after 9 years at the helm. During that time, he's become a man of Merseyside and was even given the freedom of the city in 2022. But as David Chisnall's been finding out, there's one town in particular where they will find it hard to say Auf Wiedersehen.
Jurgen Klopp's special connection with Liverpool runs deep.
You have to understand how important is football to the people. It's very important to me, but I cannot expect usually that everybody thinks the same way. But here it was a match. It fitted like a glove.
While Anfield is Klopp's spiritual home, 12 miles north is his real home in Formby. Known for its beautiful beaches and red squirrels, the coastal town is where the Reds' boss has lived since joining the club in 2015, when he moved into the mansion owned by the man he replaced, Brendan Rodgers.
He may live on a street tagged Millionaires Row, but the down-to-earth German likes to be a man of the people and is often spotted out and about.
We've seen him round the village and he's always takes his time to speak to everybody and very, very friendly.
Very charming.
Very charming
man.
I put my hand out and said, "Hello Jurgen, my name's Phil and I'm an Everton supporter." And I don't know why I did that, but he was really friendly. He was a bit confused and we stood and spoke to him for a couple of minutes and he was really quite nice, actually, in spite of all the things we'd called him in the past.
Klopp has bowled over many in his adopted home, and nowhere more so than at Formby Village Bowling Club, where the members were given a day they'll never forget as he and his coaching staff dropped in for a game of crown green bowls.
Nice style.
Oh, natural.
So Eric, tell us, how on earth did it end up that Jurgen Klopp came to have a game of bowls here?
I got in from the pub and there was a message on my phone saying that Jurgen Klopp wanted to come down and have a game of bowls. This is somebody winding me up, you know, so that was my first reaction.
Why did you want to play bowls?
I have something like a sports bucket list.
You're a big Liverpool fan and you got to play with him. What on earth was that like?
Well, it was unbelievable, really. He had the makings of being a really good player, but his speed, it was a little bit off. But he was so lovely about it. He just pulled a funny little face, a little grin, and he said, "You can be honest." Unfortunately, I played one of the worst games of bowls I've ever played, but even so, I still got some Jurgen hugs, which I will live with forever.
Well, from Premier League title-winning celebrations with his players at Formby Hall to photos with young players from Formby Community FC while walking his dog, Klopp is a popular figure here.
It's a good place to live.
Yeah, lovely, yeah.
The 56-year-old is one of a long list of Liverpool managers and players to call Formby home, and that includes his former neighbour and club legend David Fairclough.
He's a huge, massive figure around Merseyside, and most people would die for a glimpse of him walking through the city centre. Around here, they've been very fortunate to see him so regularly, and just sort of give him that piece of time. Don't bother him, and I think he's appreciated that.
This photo of Klopp with Steven Gerrard and a young fan at his local went viral ahead of the Champions League final 2 years ago, and the pub remains one of his favourite places to visit in Formby.
What is it like when Jurgen comes in?
Well, quite excited. There's a little buzz because he's quite charismatic. He'll walk in, big smile on his face, obviously if they've won.
So what does he like? He gets his pint of beer and then...
Fish and chips.
Fish and chips?
Yes, usually fish and chips, and he likes a steak and ale pie.
Are you going to miss him when he goes?
We will, definitely. I think Formby will miss him in general.
Well, while Klopp is calling time on his time at Liverpool,
Yes, Jurgen's name.
signing in.
Yeah.
here special memories of the man will remain for years to come. David Chisnell, ITV News, Formby.
Yeah, the good people of Formby confirming what we all knew anyway. Jurgen Klopp is a top man, isn't he?
Absolutely.
What's on your sports bucket list? Bowls?
To be able to play any kind of sport, to be honest, Lucy. My friends at school can't believe I do this job. I was rubbish at any sport.
He's talking about sport. What?
Brilliant.
Thank you,
Love
Mike.
it. Thanks, Mike. Great way to end. Now then, she is the inspirational chef and restaurateur Nisha Katona. Nisha, of course, quit her job as a solicitor a decade ago to set up Mowgli in Liverpool. The street food restaurant has since spread to many other locations across the country, and Nisha is now in a position to help others close to home.
Yeah, she's been along to Clare House to launch a major fundraiser for the hospice. The Mowgli Dog Show, now in its 6th year, takes place next month. Claire Hannah reports.
Is that the camera? Are you going to show them around? Is that you?
Oliver is 3 years old, so he was born with congenital heart disease, which means he's got half a heart. So we've spent a lot of time in Alderhay, and a lot of time being cared for by Clare House.
Charlie is a lovely little boy. He's got a condition called Lissencephaly, which basically means that his brain's not developed properly. He can't walk, talk, use his hands. Basically, he's 24-hour care. We've got to do everything for him, really.
Shirley and Amelia are just two of the hundreds of parents for whom Clare House is a lifeline. The charity has 2 hospices, one on the Wirral and this one, which provides daycare, tucked away in West Derby in Liverpool. One of their biggest supporters visited today, Nisha Katona, who set up the Mowgli Charitable Trust on the back of her successful chain of restaurants. This year sees the 6th annual Mowgli Dog Show for Clare House, which she says reflects hers and the country's love of dogs.
I know my mum, for instance, once my dad passed, it was Dave the Whippet that, gave her that reason for living, which is ridiculous. She didn't have any pictures of our weddings or graduations on a wall, but she had a picture of Dave and his rosette that he won at the Aintree Dog Show. And that's what gave me the idea to do a dog show. I thought, my gosh, that matters so much to so many people. So why don't we build something that gives people a family day out where there's loads of food, there's a fun fair, 4-legged friends, and something where every single penny of that profit comes directly to Clare House.
Last year's raised more than £100,000, but the all-important question: why is he called Dave?
Some people take him seriously. I chose the name Dave for the Whippet because it's like an accountant's name. It's a strong English name, and as a little Indian family in Skem, we wanted people to at least take our dog seriously. Look at this state of him. He could be an accountant, couldn't he?
Dave.
Isn't she brilliant?
Oh, the state of him, he's lovely, lovely. Let's get
like
the word.
an accountant.
Yeah, well, a little bit. Here's Joe.
Why do I need a shower? I've been out in the rain.
The faster you go, the sooner you'll be out. You'll save water too.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada Weather.
Thank you. A very good evening to you. There's been a few glimmers of warm sunshine around today, but a fair amount of cloud cover and quite a few showers in the northwest. A few more to come tomorrow, but in general, over the next few days, we should be treated to some warm spells of sunshine. It'll be breezy at times, but as we head into the weekend, looking generally dry, with just perhaps the odd shower during Saturday. The jet stream dips to the south of the UK for the time being. The air across the UK is relatively mild. As we get towards the weekend, a slight shift in the jet stream, but looking fine and settled for most places with some sunshine on Saturday and Sunday, and it isn't going to feel chilly. Back to this evening, a few glimmers of brightness to end the day, and then overnight tonight, low cloud and mistiness will reform, much like it has done in recent nights, particularly up in the Pennines, the Cumbrian Fells and the Peak District. Could be a bit murky and foggy before dawn. Further west, towards Irish Sea coast, a few breaks in that cloud, and it's another mild one across the board, staying in double figures before dawn. On to tomorrow, the sun is up at 5:06 and it sets tomorrow evening at 9:09. Tomorrow then, a murky start for the rush hour with some mist and fog up on higher ground on Trans-Pennine routes. Skies will brighten for western areas quite quickly and there should be some warm sunshine through the morning. But as you can see, cloud building just a little bit here and a few showers tending to develop after lunch. These will merge to form longer spells of rain for parts of Lancashire, Greater Manchester and Cheshire for a time. Further west, it's drier and brighter. And temperature-wise tomorrow, we're still doing quite well for the time of year. 17, 18 Celsius, winds picking up a touch by the end of the day. Looking ahead, there's the odd shower around, but it's fairly settled as we roll into the weekend.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Hello, summer. Piri sponsors ITV pollen count.
We're seeing a general decline in tree pollen over the next few days and many grasses are yet to emerge, so we're in a bit of a sweet spot for hay fever sufferers. Levels in the northwest will be low through the rest of the week. Bye-bye.
Still thinking of our sports bucket list. What's on yours?
Anything that doesn't involve hand-eye coordination. I'm a bit like Mike. Yeah, let's avoid that. I'll go running. That'll be fine.
Fair enough. That's it. Good night.
Good night.